Hey, you know what? It's a great time of year. I love the holidays. I love the Christmas season. I don't care what the news cycle is. Heaven sent Jesus to earth, and even the angels were singing, and peace on earth, goodwill to men with whom God is pleased. And so I'm just thankful to God for you guys right now, but I got a little next level warfare in my hand here. And you know why? Because today we're going to be talking about the warfare inside story about how you can get ahead in Hollywood. I have my family. I'd sent my son, Carl, my son-in-law, Matt, out to Dr. Ted Baird to go meet with the inside producers, directors, writers, the funding mechanism for films and such in Hollywood. And they're coming back to share with you the secrets. And I'm packaging it with this broadcast today with next level spiritual warfare, because I believe we're living at a point where the institutions, the mountains are under siege. And God wants to open the gates into Hollywood. He wants to open them into Nashville. He wants to open them up in Orlando, in the media realm. And you just have to have the courage and the faith to go through. So go to lancewallnau.com/next level. You're going to love this material. You know why? Because you can pay whatever you want for it. It's a faith project. I'm preparing this great quality material for you, but I realize not everybody can afford the same thing. So you give whatever you can towards helping us out. But my gift to you is next level spiritual warfare. Call 800-910-6349 and get a hold of it for yourself. And you'll find that the training and the teaching that's there will help you break through every barrier that's holding you back. Now watch today's show. Well, the train's leaving the station, people. We got a great show today, a rare show today. I feel like I'm on a different angle than I'm normally at with my camera. Today, I've got two of my favorite people that went on an expedition to Hollywood to come back and spy out the land and explain to us what we need to learn. My son, Carl, my son-in-law, Matt.
Howdy.
And welcome back. All right, so you guys went off on an expedition. We're going to get a chance to talk, I guess we'll get another interview with Dr. Ted Baird, the Hollywood film guide guy. And how many people were in your class? You went into like a master class private event.
Yeah.
Right? So it was like 7?
We did. Yeah, we did over-unders. I hadn't read the fine print, so that was on me. But there were 7 people. I
read ahead of time. It's like max 8 people. And Carl's like 10. I'm like, I'm guessing 7.
7.
I bought tacos that day.
Okay. So now you're there, and they covered a whole lot of stuff. So if somebody who's, I feel badly because we need to record this material. We've got people that are in the arts mountain, entertainment, and then friends of mine are doing films and movies and stuff like that. So I'm pulling myself in all the time into that area. But let me ask you my first question. What surprised you most about how Hollywood actually thinks about its audience? They look at the audience and what do they see?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing where this kind of question leads to is we really learned that, I think going into it, you think, oh, Hollywood is most profitable marketing to the secular. But actually, we learned the opposite, that the Christian audience, and finally Hollywood's coming around and figuring it out with people like Dr. Ted Baird, is actually some of the most profitable films when it comes down to paper. You look at the last couple of years, and some of the most profitable films, they were Christian, either had Christian values or Christian movies.
Yeah, part of that, I think, is the built-in structure. So if you're going to make an R-rated film, you might be marketing towards a single adult, right, who's going to go out and see this R-rated film, or maybe a couple of like guys, or maybe a girls' night or something like that. But when you do family values, you have a built-in audience of at least 3 people per family. You know, you got mom, dad, and the kid, or the dad or the uncle is taking the nephews and nieces out to go see a movie. So rather than marketing towards just the adults, you're actually having a wider net to pull from out the gate, which is benefiting the bottom line.
Let's do this. Will, can you pull up the slide from there's a couple, one on like profanity and one on like nudity. I think there's like some really interesting stats we can pull up. And
there it is.
The ones that had more sexual nudity only made 9.93 million, and the stuff that had no sexual nudity yet made 5 times more, 51.74 million.
Really?
So the market for Christian values, right, is just portrayed in this, and this is from Movie Guide, so we'll give them the credit where it's due. And then do you want to show the profanity one as well for cursing and swearing?
For those of you that are on the podcast only, now you can't see this because you're listening. What are they looking at, Matt?
So this shows for very strong content in movies, and this was in 2024. For the Christian market, which did not have strong content, they made 64.67 in millions in the box office, and this is targeting basically content that supports like Christian worldview, content that supports humanist worldview, and content that supports anti-biblical worldview. And so these movies and TV shows that are coming out that are focusing on humanist worldview made 9 million. Same with Christ movies made like 9 million.
I don't get it. I mean, it seems to me that they must have a very generous category then for what is Christian, meaning traditional, like Tolkien era, good and evil, where it's good and bad are kind of universally understood. Is that what I'm looking at here?
Well, it leans into, why don't you talk about, Carl, about what we learned about the tickets and like the number of seats,
Which tickets and seats?
Like butts and seats, and how many, like the fact that families and going to movies.
Yeah. So when you have something that's high Christian content or high family values, then you're more likely to have those butts and seats. You're more likely to actually sell the tickets to the family, and it also has rewatchability, where it's not so much that the parents are just going to plop their kid in front of the screen and just set them there, but they know they can. They know that that's an option for them, and it also has the rewatchability. You know this from having children and grandchildren. There are certain movies that we would just watch over and over and over again, and you could start quoting them because we would have them on in the living room all the time. So that also goes towards not just the marketability, but the proceeds that they get after.
Then there were certain movies where I had to fast forward to the bad parts, what we called it. And so the kids were always, I was embarrassed by his Christian school because there were movies that were totally inappropriate for kids, and my kids would be talking about them. And the parents and the teachers would come to me and say, you actually show your children those movies? Well, they're a very short version of the movie because we fast forward through the bad parts.
Yeah, Passion of the Christ. No, I'm just kidding. Totally kidding. But that also is something that we didn't really get into. It was an incredible, immersive experience, very rewarding, but there wasn't a whole lot of time for real debate or discussion. It was a lot of, this is how it's been, this is how it is, which is understandable because...
That's not your style of learning, though. So were you stirring things up, Carl? Were you behaving, or were you pushing back on the professors?
I will let you ask Dr. Ted that.
I'm sure you were up to your antics.
Yeah, sure. But going back into the idea of the built-in audience with the Christian database and the demo, one thing that we also talked about, which we'll get to in a second, but the price of a movie, roughly, is going to be about $10 million for just your average movie, give or take. And a lot of that is below board, and some of it is above board. We can get into that too. But the issue that is my problem with most Christian cinema is that when a director or a story is produced and they say, okay, this is probably going to cost us about $10 million. As soon as that Christian word is thrown in, they're like, okay, we can get away with a $6 million budget because so many people are going to be donating their time. They're going to be volunteering, and we don't actually need to make it a spectacle because we have that built-in audience. So why spend more when our product is going to basically be the same?
You're saying that the temptation is to get by with a B instead of an A?
Absolutely.
Because you have a built-in audience already.
Exactly.
Matt, are you agreeing with that?
Yeah.
It's just theory there.
That was actually one of the guest speakers who came.
Oh, they confirmed it.
They confirmed it. He was one of the studio producers in Hollywood, and he literally told us, he's like, more Christians need to, like, you spend all the money. If you get 10, you don't come in under a 6. You spend the 10 because that $4 million they failed to use, it's marketing.
Yeah.
And if you're not spending money on marketing, you're not going to get people to come see these movies. And if people don't come see the movies, you don't make money at the box office.
Yeah.
So the key component was they were leaving money on the table that should have been used for marketing, and it was not used there.
Yeah. And it also does affect the idea of the movie as well, in my opinion, because it's not actually in front of your eyes. It's not like a Tom Cruise vehicle where you're going to see it every which way that you go. And there's also that Brave New World or something like that dystopian futuristic tech where when you go into a mall, for instance, they have a visual display, and based on the data that you have on your phone, they can start marketing to you that way. And they've actually already started doing that over in California. So based on your, there's a certain term for it, but the
geofencing?
Yeah, the geotag and the stuff that's on your phone, they can tell you basically, okay, well, you're likely to go see a Quentin Tarantino film, so we're going to throw up this promo for 5 seconds as you walk past it, which is kind of crazy. But if we're not doing that in the Christian community, then we're just leaving that all on the table instead of actually reaching out to people where they're at.
Who said you're supposed to be comfortable with your capacity? God didn't say, Are you comfortable? He's actually there as the comforter. Why do you think the Holy Ghost is called the comforter? Because of how uncomfortable you're going to get when you start flowing in that which God has for you.
Lance Wallnau has spent decades teaching believers how to recognize spiritual battles most people never see. Because some resistance doesn't come from what you did wrong. It comes from what was never dealt with. Patterns that repeat and struggles that feel heavier than they should be. Pressure that seems to come from nowhere. Next Level Spiritual Warfare confronts the unseen forces that operate through bloodlines, agreements, and spiritual doors, and shows you how to shut them down.
Next Level Spiritual Warfare. The spiritual warfare that's going to be in your own mind saying, I can't do this, I can't do that, how am I going to do it? Because we're going up, we're going to deal with another level. Hear more accurately, and God will add more and more revelation to plunder your strong man's house.
This teaching was created to help you recognize what you're really fighting and to activate the spiritual authority to break it. You can receive the full message from Lance Wallnau today for your generous gift of any amount at lancewallnau.com/next level or by calling 800-910-6349. Take the next step in shutting down resistance and stepping fully into what God has prepared for you.
This explains to me why it is that I've let your mother or Mercedes be using my phone and I end up getting women's shoes advertised.
That's why.
Right. Can you walk me through the one-page story structure exercise? What in the world is a one-page story structure? But listen, if you've got an aspiration to write, and so many Christians do, they want to write, they got imaginations. We live in that realm, the supernatural. All right, tell me a story structure. How are they going to get a story that works?
Yeah. So one of the main things that Ted talked about is, I'll paraphrase, but in music, it's don't bore us, get to the chorus. So what is the inciting incident right out the gate? And a number of the films that he showed us has the inciting incident within the first couple minutes. With the live action adaptation of Lilo and Stitch, for instance, the inciting incident happens within the first minute of being on screen, which is Stitch has been caught and he's an abomination and needs to be exterminated. And so that's right, you're thrown right into it. So a lot of our one pages, we have a page of script usually is about a minute of film about. And we weren't allowed to have any actions written out. We weren't supposed to have any settings or anything like that. It's just supposed to be dialogue driven. So when everyone in the class, all 7 of us, had to do our one pagers, it was kind of difficult because we were starting from a premise that we weren't supposed to have already come into the workshop with. So it was all fresh. And the premise was an interesting exercise in and of itself. So we needed to prove the premise within one page using basically only dialogue, which is really difficult.
What's the premise?
The premise, as I have it written down here.
The premise is what you're assuming is taking
it's
place.
It's kind of your North Star, you know? It's like your North Star, like what you're trying to get, what your story is ultimately achieving.
Yeah.
And so like,
where are you going? It's not necessarily the plot, because the plot is how you get there, but what the premise is. So for me, in my scene, my premise was emotion hijacks logic. So I tried to write a scene around emotion hijacking logic that kind of proves that premise, more or less. And if it doesn't happen, then why is that the case? And is that the plot twist or all that type of thing? And also focusing on the tone. So the tone of it is kind of almost like the feel of the whole thing. So with children's programming, it's going to be light, it's going to be funny, it's going to be very easygoing, you know, very silly. Whereas you can't really have that in a battle zone, for instance. And if you're in a battle zone and you throw that in, it's going to make the audience kind of confused as to what they're actually watching. Is this a serious film? Is this a joke? Is this a parody or something like that? So focusing on the premise, the plot, the characters, the themes, all of those things into a one page, it's a very difficult challenge. And the feedback that we got was terrific, in my opinion, from the group. But if you, Will, if you wouldn't mind throwing up the one page that I had on there. Yeah.
All right, so tell me what we got here.
So
do we have any bad words here?
No.
Oh, okay. I just want to know.
I think not in this edit. I went through about 7 edits on this one.
Okay.
It was difficult. If you wouldn't mind zooming in so that way the audience at home can see it, if that's as good as we can do,
that's as big as it gets. Tell me what it is. Let me read it to me, because I can't even do it at my age. I can't even see.
Yeah, no worries. So it starts with this guy Fantasia, who's a colonel, basically in charge of his infantrymen. And he says, I swear to God, this ain't the time for your jokes. These kraut are coming in hot. Pat, says, hey, don't use the Lord's name in vain, Fanta. He's, being very familiar with his superior officer. And he goes, you're disturbing the privates, and I can't believe you call him hot. So Fantasia shouts at him, you know what I mean? And Pat goes, sure. You ever wonder why we call them foxholes? I mean, they're trenches. So this guy, his emotion has already hijacked his logic. He doesn't recognize the fact that he's in a foxhole right now. He doesn't realize that he's at war because he's like, well, you know what? God's on our side, so nothing can go wrong. And that's where it goes into the next line.
Is this a cartoon or is this an actual, what you envisioned it?
I envisioned it as a live action.
Okay.
So he goes, yeah, sure. Why do we call them foxholes? And Fantasia says, this ain't the time for reflection or your existential insights, Gunny. Jerry's pressing their advantage. Stay down. So Pat says, come on, Fanta. These guys are about as accurate as their leader is Asian, which Germany is, very close to Asia. Anyway, we got God on our side. Watch, check this out. I'll check their position. And boom, sound effects, a single sniper shot. And Millionaire by Queens of the Stone Age begins playing. That's a song that has a very good trudging. So it builds up the action right there. Fantasia says, no, Pat, no. Oh my God, Pat, no. Private Druig, who's right there, he goes, no, Christ, please, no. And so he's crying out to God, and he ends up having his emotions hijack his logic. And so Fantasia recognizes that's about to happen. He says, Pat, stay with me. No, please, God, no. Pat Druig, I see that look in your eyes, stay down. And then Private Druig, rah, and he starts doing the rallying charge. I was very fortunate to have Peter as one of my actors, and he made the dramatic choice to get shot in that moment. So his emotion hijacked his logic, and he was gone. And the only person who had any logic left was Fantasia. So all of this came about from the idea of the premise, emotion hijacks logic. And originally what I had was this whole scene taking place in a counselor's office or in a psychotherapy session. But there was no nothing on the line. There was nothing that really mattered in that moment because it was all superficial. It was all ego driven as opposed to actually like what's going on, what's on the line. So one of the points that we got from may have been Jeff, may have been Dick, I can't remember. I think it was Jeff Holder, very interesting guy. And let me backtrack. The caliber of people who spoke at this event was incredible. We had directors, we had heads of studios, we had producers, and just the level of insight where you could ask them a question after their lecture or whatever was amazing, absolutely spectacular. So when we were like, how do we add some valence to this? He's like, I don't know, have it take place in a war zone. And I was like, done. All right, great. Right there. How do you make it matter to the audience? So having to make it matter in one page to prove your premise is and
each of you had to present a story premise.
Yep.
A premise and a one page.
Premise and a one page. It's amazing how much content you do have in a one page.
Thank you.
I mean, that was the whole scene right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's wild too is when we did these one pagers after our first review, we realized about 2/3 down the page is where we ended up having to cut it and start there because it took too long to get to the action. So that was a great part about having to boil it down to one page.
Yeah.
Some people came in with 2 pages and he's like, you broke my rule. I said 1 page. Bring it down to 2, But it's a hard thing for people to do is break stuff down.
What was your one page concept?
Whip it out. Let's see it.
Did you have yours here?
Yeah. My premise was truth destroys deception. And I basically, here we go. Let's see. It's called The Way West. And so Marshall Ward says, at some point, Caleb, you're just going to have to trust my word. And Caleb goes, and that's the problem, Marshall. I don't. Marshall, look around you. This town, these fields, your dreams, they're dying, and so are you. At some point, you're going to have to count the cost. Caleb says, count the cost, as in a whole year of wages cost, as in putting my family in risk of cholera cost, as in bandits, raiders, Indians, thieves, starvation, going bankrupt cost. Marshall replies, don't be such a wet blanket, Caleb. Caleb, I need to know you're a man of your word. I need to know you'll get me and my family safely to Oregon. Marshall replies, what good are my words, Caleb? You said it yourself. Caleb responds, Marshall, I didn't mean any disrespect. Marshall interrupts, and I was just starting to like you. I bid you good night, Caleb. If you do change your mind on my services, on my word, I'll see you and your family at first light. Caleb responds, peace be with you, Marshall. Peace be with you. And peace awaits you, Caleb. A splendid, heavenly, peaceful palace of ponderosas as far as the eye can see awaits you.
So did you guys have actors read these?
Yes.
Well, we had each other read them. So we had one actor in the group, Peter. Shout outs to you. And everyone else was either a writer, a producer, anything like that.
So Peter had to do some work there.
Yeah, we had a couple actors and actresses that were
Gabriella as well.
Pretty good at what they did. But like it really helped you if you should have seen where they started.
Mm-hmm.
Like you went from a premise to then character development and then starting to write it out. But this is like rapid fire, like one day. So very quickly with limited time, we had to boil it down. And you learn a lot by, I mean, every word on the page has to have weight or it doesn't, or you get bored.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know if you remember, but the subtlety of what he did throughout the week was so during lunch, he was like, I want you to come to lunch with a story. And in that story, you have to keep it under 2 or 3 minutes, but you have to make me laugh and you have to make me cry in 2 or 3 minutes.
2 to 3 minutes.
You have to make me laugh.
And make me cry.
Who said this?
Ted.
Ted, you
Dr. Bear, excuse me.
Dr. Bear, you had to make him laugh or cry.
Both.
No, both.
Both, ideally.
Oh, both.
Yeah.
So the idea was you needed to have conflict. You had to draw him in. So, I mean, I never thought of that, like, even at your family table at dinner, like, when I tell a story about how was your trip or how was this, how do I recount it in a way that brings him on this journey, you know?
And also, it's important, in my opinion, to focus on conflict, because that's something that's notably missing from Christian entertainment. They shy away from conflict because they think it's bad or it's going to reflect poorly on one of the characters. But that's where a lot of the character development happens, is in that conflict. And that's also where we see a lot of ourselves, too. So that's something that every scene needed, even if it was a subplot or if it was a subtle type of conflict going on between the characters.
So conflict drives the story.
For sure.
And almost, I guess, you know, once you start learning these formulas, every movie, every scene, everything I see now, does it mess it up for you because you're going, oh, where's the conflict going to come from? Who's the villain here? Who's the likable person? Or
I'm really glad that you say that, because one of the things that I'm still wrestling with is comparing Dr. Ted's formula with the monomyth template of Joseph Campbell, where in Joseph Campbell's monomyth template, it starts in the ordinary world. That's world building, right? But with Dr. Ted, he's like, no, show me the inciting incident. It's like, well, there's no ordinary world then. You're just jumping right into the conflict. So having to walk that kind of tightrope while also adding in your own flair is part of the creator's journey, I guess.
And sometimes what I'm now realizing some writers do is they mess with time periods. So like with Wolverine or something, they take you into a time where something's happening, and then you go back, or you go years later, or it's before he was Wolverine. It's like, so they get you they hook you in with the conflict, but then you have to get the story, the context, right?
Yeah. Nobody wants to read your scrolling dialogue or whatever.
So you're saying 1 page equals a minute?
About.
Yep.
So basically within 60 to 90 minutes, 60 to 90 pages is your movie.
Just about.
Yeah, they said the goal is like a 90-page script is typically what they like Hollywood would look for, and that would be a barometer too. If you're an amateur,
I got questions I should probably be asking him. I'm going to ask you. Like,
just jot those down.
Now I'm curious. So when you're shopping with these guys, I mean, here you are. You're with the real deal now. I'm a director. I'm a producer. You couldn't help but think, this is a decision maker. You know. So what kind of questions did you ask him?
I mean, the biggest one, I think for someone like myself who's done some commercials and stuff like that, so have had experience being on set, I'm just like, how do I make a movie? Like, is it actually possible for me to do this?
Yeah.
And the first guy who was a producer in Hollywood,
Michael Emerson,
actually laid out for us, literally financially, and it made it, he simplified it in a way, and I'm like, this is actually possible. Because it's essentially, you just need to find that first equity of 10% or more.
Yeah.
So if you want to make a $10 million movie, if you can essentially fundraise with your friends, family, $1 million.
I got $1 million for my project.
Yeah.
There you go.
Then what's crazy is there's matching equity, there's film and tax incentives, there's foreign sales, and there's a bridge loan, and all that will make up the 100%. And all you need is 10% to start.
It almost makes it possible.
It does.
It makes it feel like we went in there feeling like it's
achievable. But that's movies. You guys are like the movie guys, man. I'm thinking like Dinesh D'Souza does a very profitable documentary. There are those documentaries he's done, you know, that have made millions of dollars. And I guess they're like a movie. Did they mention what the difference is between a documentary and a film or anything like that?
We didn't ask much about documentaries.
No, I bet it's similar. It's marketing. It still comes out to, you know.
Well, we did have a documentarian there, and so he kind of spoke a little bit. He was a member of the class. He wasn't a speaker who came in, so he's done a couple of those. The main thing with those, just like with many other movies, though, is the distribution. So having distribution set up ahead of time, to make sure that you know how your movie's getting out there, how you're actually going to not just market it,
So
but how
it's
you're
not
going
just
to,
the content, of course. It's like a band. You know, like Carl, you've had this challenge. You guys, you do a whole lot of work on putting an album together, and you realize it's a great album. But now, how are people going to hear it?
right.
You got to have the distribution, otherwise. So, which films examples did they use to explain why some movies succeed and why some fail? Give me some wins and losers.
Well, there's one that, in my opinion, I don't speak for everybody else, but we watched Bow, Artist at War, and it seemed like it was, in my opinion, a really good movie. It stars Emil Hirsch. It's covering the artist Bow during World War II in the internment camps, and his story. And one of the reasons it didn't get as much notoriety, according to some of the people who were at Movie Guide, is because of current anti-Semitic sentiment in Hollywood. It seemed like it was a pro-Jewish movie, and it seemed like it was anti-Holocaust. And so for those reasons, they were saying it's actually been poo-pooed.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
No, being legit.
You're telling me that you can't have an anti-Holocaust? I'm not so sure about that.
Not with what's going on right now, because it seems like it's, you know, and we don't have to get into all the politics of it.
The director was trying to get it reviewed by people so he could get in a bunch of these
What
places.
the heck?
They wouldn't
it's
review
like
it.
trying to get the Passion of the Christ.
They wouldn't
Nobody
touch
wants
it.
to do a Jesus movie. That's weird.
Yeah.
Well, to the idea that nobody wants to do a Jesus movie, that's patently false. Because we, at the tail end on Sunday afternoon, Ted showed us kind of like a montage of like 400 Bible story movies that have come out over the last 70 years or something like this. And so one of the reasons for that is it's public domain. It's anyone can do that story.
Stories, actually, you're right. They're stories, and you know, and they are right. No one can say I own Samson.
But I think part of the grit, or like the issue that they were facing, is that Mel Gibson wanted to make a period piece that was accurate. And so that goes against a lot of that built-in Christian database, because the demo doesn't want to see that level of violence. They see it as gratuitous. Thank you. And some people also see it as borderline pornographic. It's like it's celebrating that level of excess and whatnot. But that's, as far as the historians are concerned, that's what happened. So there was that discrepancy with Mel Gibson's Passion movie, where he was like, no, I want to do the Passion the way that it was actually done. And they were like, that's too much. It's going to turn the Christians off. But that was also one of the reasons it was celebrated as successful as it was, because it was a time period piece that was accurate. So that's some part of the idea, in my opinion, in the conversation that really needs to happen moving forward, where a lot of the stories in the Bible are adult content, a lot of them. And if we want to have a biblically accurate representation, that's going to turn a lot of the built-in Christian audience off, because it is going to be R-rated or NC-17. So that's part of that juggling act. It's not that people don't want to make a Jesus movie. It's that people are comfortable making a lackluster Jesus movie because the audience has already proven that they'll show up for it. So that's part of the issue. It's on us to actually say that we're expecting better. We want more, but we want better.
Okay, so I got to go back to the how to make the sausage question.
Yeah.
Explain to me the 3 times rule in the box office.
Actually, you'll like this, Lance. Well, could you pull up the Gladiator numbers? So just as a general rule, what we learned, we can do the 2001 first. Perfect. What we learned as a general rule is how they determine this. We had a studio head from Disney come in and actually explain this to us, like how do they determine if a movie is successful or not? It used to be closer to like, I think 2.5x, but because of recent events and things in the economy, I think it's now up to 3%. If the production budget cost needs to worldwide gross at least 3 times, and then they consider it a successful movie.
The production budget, which means all the money it took to make it, has to go 3 times.
So like Gladiator, that one production budget was $103 million, the original one, and the gross, the world box office was $450 million. So that was about 4.4 times production budget. So that was, as you know, it's a very successful movie. And which is funny. We all think about why they're doing all these remakes. Well, if you look at Gladiator 2, the one that recently came out, that one was a little bit more to make, $250 million, and it grossed about the same, $460. So that did about 1.8. So not quite 3 times.
And not as good a story.
Yeah.
Right.
And sometimes the sequels, is that what it is when you do a movie after a movie? It's It's not a prequel or whatever.
No, it's a sequel. I was just considering reboot, but it's not a reboot. They weren't rebooting the franchise.
Right. It wasn't Spider-Man all over again with another actor, but it's
multiverse.
Yeah, but it was almost like that. It's like, it's funny when you hit a really great, like The Matrix. Once they hit a certain, a paradigm shifting technique, like going up into the air and spinning around. They did it's like, all right, now, and in Gladiator, the soundtrack was paradigm shifting. It's like, whoa, and suddenly I'm watching another movie, like with Harrison Ford, and it's about a submarine commander in Russia, and whoa, it was like Hans Zimmer, the same music.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, it's a genre, it's a sound, Hey, keep the film running, guys. They're blinking on me. I'm out of time. I don't care. I'm on social media. I'm going to do as long as I want to do. I'm interested in the subject.
You should tell him on that effect about. Oh man, sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
No, you're good. On movies, they say that about 40% of the movie is the soundtrack.
That's what it was.
Are you serious?
That's what they said. As far as the impact, and like if you watch a film, watch it on mute and then watch it with the sound on.
It's really funny because I listen to that now. Your mom's degree is in film, and which would be my wife is your mother.
Your mother. Sorry,
not my mother, not your mother, but your mother, and
in-law,
and your mother-in-law. But anyway, so I said, "What was your specific degree in?" She goes, "Well, actually, my expertise was soundtracks." I thought, "Soundtracks?" She goes, "Yeah, matching sound to image." So I'm now tuned into this, and we were watching something the other night, and we're both saying the sound is too loud. Mm-hmm. In the mixing, in the editing, even someone that's a listener can say the audio track is garbled because they're playing too much. They're playing their theme music so loud. Mm-hmm. Somebody didn't make the distinction that the music is too loud and the voice is getting lost or something like that. But I mean, it's part of baking the cake, and sometimes it's not in your control. All right, so the 3-time rule in modern box office is 3 times the production, because I have the question, but I didn't have the answer.
3 times the cost, yeah. And real quick around sound too is, you think of some of the greatest soundtracks and scores you've ever heard, like even in The Lord of the Rings, it was a real human voice, that emotion and weight behind it. And like even Gladiator and some of the, like, when you go back and you see some of the behind the scenes of how they made these sounds, it's just like, that's what, there's an emotion in it that digs and pulls at your soul rather than just a flat baseline track,
It also is cool, just as an aside, to see how they make some of those sound effects. So actually watching the sound designer work in their studio, the stuff they use to make that sound, but then when it translates, it's like, oh yeah, of course, it's not a coconut I'm listening to, that's a horse galloping, that kind of thing. Going back to Monty Python.
Gotcha. All right, so any legal pitfalls to look out for when you're doing a contract for people that are, because I know some friends of mine that invested in movies, and it was a little bitter experience for them because the way that the thing was structured, like last in, first out, or first in, last out, or whatever. But somebody's making the money, and put the money in, you're at the tail end of the machine, and you don't get much.
Yeah. So a couple things on that. First and foremost, hire an entertainment lawyer, not just a real estate lawyer, not just a bird law lawyer. Get yourself an entertainment lawyer because they actually know how to read through the jargon. Another thing is the points system. So conventionally, usually, a movie has 100 points to distribute between all of the different people who are going to be getting points on the back end or whatever. 50% goes towards the producer, right? And then the other 50% is kind of what's divvied up inside of the system. So when somebody is signing a contract that says you're going to be getting this amount of points, make sure that you're getting an actual point as opposed to a point under somebody else's point under somebody else's point. So instead of getting 5 points, you're actually getting 5% of one other person's point, which is how they can circumnavigate actually paying you. And then you also, it was mentioned, first money in, last money out, or last money in, first money out. That's usually going to be a lot of the bridge loans, I think, is going to be last money in, first money out.
Well, like the distributors get paid first usually, obviously, but like to your point, what's interesting is they would go to a screenwriter and say, rather than me pay you, 50, 75K for your script, how about I pay you $5,000 and I give you 5%? Now you're 5%. Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing.
Sounds great.
But when you look at the fine print, it's 5% of the producer's 50%. So that 5% is actually like 2.5%.
Right.
So, and not only that, but sometimes it's either first in, first out.
And it's after someone else has recouped their investment.
And if they don't make the money, guess what? That little percentage is gone. you don't make anything. So
well, I've done that myself.
you've got to,
That's why I'm asking. I've done that, people.
Also,
I won't talk about it with my friends I invest with. After everything you learned, what's the? I got to ask one question. Merchandising.
oh, that's a Carl.
Merchandising. So a lot of Disney movies and Disney TV shows are what is referred to as loss leaders. So they don't actually expect to make money on the movie or on the TV show, on the IP. That way, they're going to make their money by selling tickets to Disneyland, to Disney World, on the toys and on the merchandising. So in Spaceballs, they mentioned that, where that's actually where the majority of the money is going to come from. And that's not factored into the movie being a success as much as the IP being a success. So one of the reasons that Disney is, to pull from the actual jargon of one of the former heads, creatively bankrupt, is because they've already proven that they can make money through the merchandising, or they can make money through the back end. So even if this movie that they're rebooting or re-releasing as a live action adaptation is going to make a little bit of money, it's not going to do the 3 times, so it's not a successful film, but it does make enough money to justify the expense, then they're able to make a bunch more money on the merchandising and on the additional sales after the fact of the IP. So that's a big part.
And
for
games, man. I've seen some.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
watched some movies, like for instance, even like with Lord of the Rings, the Tolkien thing. I was noticing certain parts of it almost like it was being gamified. Like when they're going through the what do they call the dwarves? Big cavern there, and they're being chased, and they're going on. They're on the rails. They're inside the vehicles that are carrying the gold and the dirt, and the tracks are breaking. I'm going, this is an awfully long and animated. This looks like it's going to be part of a game my kids would buy. And same thing with the dragon. It's chasing you through the tunnel, and the fire is coming out of it. I'm thinking, this is setting them up for the games. This is going to be an animated electronic coming out at the same time in Christmas. You could go do the troll chase or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where they make their money. A lot of it.
I'm a little bit disappointed to find that out, even though I understand. After everything you learned, what's the biggest shift in your thinking now about films, documentary, and making it work?
For me, I think I learned that the industry is at a catalytic moment, because with the introduction of streaming, that was the biggest thing all these studios said, is that we can't figure out what's next, because they used to make, just like with the music industry, they used to make all that money on CDs. Luckily, they could then transfer to touring, and but now they have to tour, and that's how they make their money. They haven't figured out what's next, because box office sales aren't the same what they used to be. What you used to be able to make with movies, people aren't going to movies the same as they used to be. So they're kind of at this new precipice of like, how are we going to capture our audience? And it's kind of, they literally in the class, they're like, this is where we're at, and we're trying to figure it out. So as like an entrepreneur, your brain starts going to like, if I could figure this out, if I can figure out how to break the mold in this new catalytic moment, there's an opportunity out there.
Yeah. I had heard and read that streaming basically broke Hollywood, but actually hearing these industry insiders say like, no, streaming literally ruined it. Like, and when they say ruined it, it foundationally
Explain
changed.
to the older part of my audience here, what do you guys mean streaming versus Hollywood? Well, what are you talking about? Are you talking about getting it on Netflix or Hulu?
Yeah.
Has killed going to the theater?
A big part of it. So they're also cannibalizing themselves. Netflix will occasionally do, like with Stranger Things, for instance, they're having the finale that's an hour long or a movie length episode and whatnot. And there's going to be select theaters that it'll be in. So people, instead of actually going to the theaters to see these things, they're like, all right, well, I'll wait a month and watch it on streaming. I'm already paying for the platform anyway. So why would I remove myself from the comfort of my home to go and pay for all these concessions at $20 a piece of popcorn?
Is that what you're trying to figure out, how to solve that problem?
It used to be a lot longer. Like it'd be like a 6-month theatrical release before it could go onto a streaming. And it's gone down to literally 30 days or sometimes the same day now.
Yep.
So there's no incentive to go to the theater. Like before, it's like,
well, who's making that decision? Because that is killing the industry of
theaters. It's the studios themselves, I think.
Yeah. It's the studios as well as the hubs.
You know where this will end up? So Apple is now investing millions of dollars, right, in like the Foundation series, and making their own production studios with their own movies. What they would probably do is say, since they control the platform, if they build a series is successful or they got a subject, they would not let it be in theaters for 6 months, so that you won't see it until you go to the theater. In other words, they could start to, if it works for them, they could start to really have their own theaters for their own productions.
Well, another point to that, which is really weird, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but it's something like movie theaters get to keep the first 90% of ticket sales opening weekend, and then it's diminishing returns after that. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, that's a whole legal thing. It's a whole other contract you talked about, because some movie theaters it's 50-50. But again, they're first in, first out. All the movie theaters always, so when you see the numbers on here, it's how much the studio actually took back, because the theaters actually take half of that money from the sales.
It's also one of the reasons concessions cost so much, because movie theaters are basically only making money on the concessions. So popcorn, candy, all
Really?
that stuff.
It's like the merchandise.
Yeah.
They're making money off of the popcorn, the sodas and stuff.
There was an interesting graphic Dr. Bear showed us.
No,
too.
Ted Bear's going to be here in 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay. Real quick, what was interesting is he almost showed us this. He called it the Death Star graphic.
Yes.
But he had all the Amazons, Apple, and he showed how big those companies were compared to these studios, and how these studios are really in market share diminishing. And it's kind of like a matter of time. It's no wonder all these Amazons and Apple are building up their
Prime, Apple TV, Hulu, all those things.
When they're not necessarily generating revenue, but it's a market position where they can then acquire, like acquisitions. We might see Netflix get acquired by Amazon or
Super
Apple
easy.
or MGM or, and then they'll be owning all the media.
This is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
This is probably not a good idea.
But you can do it. You can go out there. You can influence the entertainment industry.
Is AI in getting to the point where it is good at story writing yet? Is AI getting to the? I know it's big. I know it can be used for creation of stuff at a fraction of the cost. I might add, animation that's on AI. Have you guys seen it? I've seen it.
Yeah. It's.
I mean, I'm watching it on YouTube all the time. Weird stuff. I'm looking at it going, that's not even the guy. I mean, like I will look at Victor Hansen and I'm going, I actually know the guy's sound well enough that I could tell this is an AI generated image of him saying things he would say from a composite of stuff he has says, but it's not him. It's like at some point it's going to get really weird where they could have any actor who's gone play a role for a new role. They could have Russell Crowe in the next Gladiator, and it looks like Russell Crowe when he was 38.
It's going to be where you can just sell your likeness and image as an avatar and make money and royalties and residuals off of it. I guarantee it in the future, for sure.
I got to land the plane here, but there's, I guess, do you guys have hope for a new generation of savvy entrepreneurial creators that want to be able to I mean, everything doesn't have to go through Hollywood. You know, the studios are opening up in other places, Texas, Nashville, Atlanta. Did they mention that at all?
Absolutely, yeah.
They did. However, it is a club in Hollywood. That was something else that we had talked about. And so one of the reasons that everything happens in these studios is because that's actually where everyone is located. I don't have the exact number, but it was something like there are 1,200 micro offices inside of these studios. So there's lobbyists, there's military people, there's LGBTQ offices. So that way everybody gets to put their little piece on whatever the studio is releasing. So even though there are new studios opening up, Georgia is drying up.
Yeah. That was the big thing he said too about the churches. The churches used to be in this club, like they used to really strongly try to influence making content. And then when they stepped away, the box office dramatically left because they weren't making content that was glorifying God anymore. And when they came back, it started to help improve it again. But to that end too, in Texas, actually, we learned it's starting to become kind of the new Mecca. They're building a giant studio in Austin.
I heard that.
They're building a giant studio here in Fort Worth. And because of the film incentives, they lost a giant film incentive in Atlanta, which is creating a hole now. And now the film incentive is very good here in Texas, so it's becoming very lucrative to film here. Well,
folks, you've heard it here. Now, if you're interested in attending a future small group exclusive, I don't know how many more Ted's going to be able to do, to be honest with you, because I don't know how many. I don't know how he does the ones he's doing because they're so small. They're not. He's bringing in inside talent. You couldn't. I can't imagine hiring them for a seminar and getting all that.
Dude, the guy who discovered Shia LaBeouf was there, and Hillary Duff too, which was just amazing. It was fabulous. He was also the director of Bow.
Well, where should we send them? They're interested in this on getting more information.
I would say go to movieguide.com. That's what I would say. Check out movieguide.org. Is it .com?
Movieguide.org.
I think it's movieguide.org.
Yep. Movieguide.org.
You take two.
And start your step there. And the man to talk to is Dr. Ted Baehr, Baehr. Well, the studio's telling me I have to end the interview, so we're going to land the plane, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to navigate